This Week in Radio Tech, episode 273, is brought to you by Axia Livewire Plus. Livewire Plus includes fully compliant AES 67 built in, Livewire convenience plus worldwide connectivity. By the Telos HX1 and HX2 telephone hybrids, the most advanced hybrids ever developed for use with analog phone lines. And by Lavo and the Crystal Clear Virtual Radio Console. Crystal Clear is the console with a multi-touch touchscreen interface. Digital signage technology is showing up everywhere, from swanky elevators to shopping malls to restaurants. Now, some radio stations are using this tech to inform station visitors, on-air talent, and station staff. As engineers, we'll be called upon to implement these systems. Jeff Schick joins Chris Tobin and me to explain what to look for in digital signage. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. I'm delighted to be here. I'm not in my usual office. In fact, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, at the world headquarters for the Telos Alliance, one of our sponsors here, and they happen to be my employer too. So got to say hi to Frank Foti real quick today, and so that's where the show's coming to you from today. We're getting ready for a company event this weekend, and so that's why I'm here. And our show, episode number 273, is This Week in Radio Tech. It's the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. And we're going to take a little detour today into something very interesting for your radio station. I've seen this technology at some really high-end radio stations, and it's becoming much more affordable for stations, let's say, the size of my stations in Mississippi or American Samoa. So you're going to want to stick around and hear about this. It's just amazing stuff, and we've got a great guest on. But before we bring our guest in, let's check in at in New York City. Chris Tobin is here. Chris, can you tell us where you are, or is that a secret?
I'm in a transmitter combiner room, TV transmitter combiner room, and what's behind me is actually a duplexer or combiner for, see if I can do this without killing too much of the angle. There we go.
Oh!
That's part of the duplexing waveguide that combines two transmitters. And the cylindrical vertical device is not a Dalek, so don't panic.
That looks like one of those gerbil trail things that they run around inside, but usually they're clear. You can see the gerbils.
Well, yeah, I don't want to see these gerbils. Yeah.
So how much power is going through that rectangular pipe we call waveguide?
Good question. I think these stations are running, 20 kilowatts, 20 or 30 kilowatts. Yeah.
Okay, each.
They're I think this is low power UHF. No, I shouldn't say low power. I think there's some type of special UHF stations.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's pretty potent. Matter of fact, I think channel 55, channel 40. I think it's either 20 or it was 35,000 watts, something to that effect.
Now waveguide that's big. Why? Tell us, for those of us who aren't quite exactly sure, why isn't that coax? Why have they got that big waveguide for signals to go through? Because
at the frequencies you're operating at and the power, that's the way that you can manipulate the waveform and get it to where it has to go. And when you're doing combining and whatnot, that takes the place of, if you will, coax interconnects. Because if I do this, and you look up, let me see if we can do this right. See if I get my finger in the place to sort of act as a pointer. There we go. Right there. That is the transmission line up to the antenna after the signals have been combined.
So that's coax. That's coaxial there, right?
Well, it's a rigid, solid. Yeah, I guess you could say it's coaxial because there's a center conductor and outer. And then just above my finger is the waveguide that goes all the way down. Whoops. We can't get this right. I'm looking backwards. Down to the converter or the combiner itself, and then into the transmission line.
Wow. Hey, we need a lesson on television RF sometime. I still don't know the difference between a duplexer, a diplexer, and a combiner. And those are all interesting technologies, and I know all three exist, and so we got to have a lesson on that one. Some show when we don't have a guest, or if we do have an expert guest, let's talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Duplexes, combiners, and diplexers, absolutely. Actually, the room I'm in has dozens of duplexers. I think we've got a couple of combiners, and I believe there is actually a diplexer here too for a microwave system. So yeah, we got all three technologies going on behind me.
Wow. All right. Well, our show, unfortunately, is not about television RF, which is apparently what Chris is involved with right now. Our show is about a technology that is becoming pretty popular, at least in the big radio stations around the world. I was just in Sydney, Australia, and saw this exact kind of tech throughout a beautiful facility there. But This guy, our guest, is bringing it to, more affordably to smaller radio stations. And our guest, let's bring him on, is Jeff Schick. Jeff, welcome in. Glad you're here. Where are you talking to us from, Jeff? Well, we got no audio from Jeff. Jeff, are you muted? And Jeff is working on the problem very diligently now. We had audio before.
We had audio just before we went live.
Just before we went live. I spent too much time yapping. Didn't bring him on.
That's quite all right. There we go. I heard hello.
Did you hear
Jeff,
me?
You there? Yeah, I hear you now.
Hey.
Welcome
I'm a
in.
radio guy with no sound. Thank you. I'm in I'm in Forest Hills, Queens, New York, right down the street from the U.S. Open tennis tournament, which is rained out today.
By the way, I'm so glad you got that fixed because I was not prepared for an hour of Jeff Schick charades. So glad you found the problem. So Jeff, okay, I've been hyping you as the guy who's going to bring us some signage technology. So you were telling me where you at. I asked that question. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about where you're coming to us from, and then we'll jump in pretty quickly to our subject at hand.
Okay, well, I'm based in Forest Hills, Queens, New York, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. I'm a subway ride away from Manhattan. I've spent most of my career working in Manhattan in a variety of radio and TV facilities. So I'm basically a radio guy doing video now.
Gotcha. There's a lot of that going around. I mean, here we are doing a TV show, and we're all radio guys. So there's a lot of that going around. Jeff, tell us about your company, Sprite Media. I'm going to do a commercial here in just a minute, but kind of give us a little taste of what we're going to be hearing about over the next few minutes.
Sure. Sprite Media, we're a digital signage company. We're new. We've only been around probably a little less than a year. And I came up with the idea when I was bike riding and tried to put my 25 years of broadcasting together with all the things I've done, whether it be television and aviation and computer and radio. And I was thinking, how can I serve the radio community, which I feel that I'm still part of? And that was kind of the birth of Sprite Media. I developed the product before I even named it. And now I have several people helping me out, and I think we certainly have something interesting. And as far as I know, nobody else is doing this, at least yet.
Gotcha. Well, now there are. You know what? I won't. I'll keep our powder dry. Let you talk about it.
Sure.
As I mentioned, I was just at some stations in Australia where they have some pretty interesting digital signage going on there. Both, for the purposes of customers in the lobby to see, hey, what a great station we are, and then also in the news and prep areas and in the control rooms. So I'm curious to see hear your thoughts about this and see what you're doing and how this kind of technology is good for radio stations, both in terms of public image and in terms of on-air execution and information that people want to have. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. But first, we're gonna pay a bill and tell you that our show is sponsored in part by the folks at Axia and the Axia LiveWire Plus system. Now, we've talked about LiveWire Plus once or twice before on the show, and here's what I want you to know about it. Back 15 years ago, when there was no audio over IP, or what there was not really usable for broadcast. It wasn't low latency with the various systems that were out there. So somebody had to invent audio over IP that would actually work in a broadcast environment. And that's what the folks at Telos did. They put together PhDs in Europe and scientists here in the U.S., and they came up with something that they called LiveWire. Well, now fast forward, about 10 years, and it became pretty obvious that what the broadcast world needed was a unifying standard. Not everybody was going to jump on the LiveWire bandwagon. Competitors were developing their own systems, and they're incompatible with each other and with LiveWire. So the folks here at Axia, at the Telos Alliance, along with other manufacturers, reps, scientists, PhD level people from different companies, got together under the auspices of the Audio Engineering Society, and they slaved away for a couple of years to come up with this standard. It's called AES 67. Now, we've done a whole show on AES 67 with Greg Shea, but what I want you to know is that AES 67 has been rolled into LiveWire, giving you as a LiveWire user something that's very usable and completely compatible with any other company, any other manufacturer, any other equipment that's also using AES67. It's called LiveWire Plus. And the reason that we call it LiveWire Plus is because, you know what, if you want to build studios that are using AES67 all by itself, let me tell you, you've got a lot of typing to do. That doesn't have advertising of sources and discovery of equipment out there. AES67 does not include GPIO. There's a lot of conveniences that are built in to LiveWire that are not in AES67. So AES67 is a wonderful glue to tie a couple things together or to tie studios together. But if you want convenience of plugging in equipment and making it work, you need LiveWire. Well, guess what? You got both in the same thing. It's LiveWire Plus from the Telos Alliance and from Axia. So LiveWire Plus, what it does is it simply adds the AES67 stream type, the common denominator stream type that everybody agrees on, to the whole LiveWire suite of protocols and just things to make your life convenient when building a studio. So if you want AES67, look no further than LiveWire Plus. LiveWire Plus is fully 100% compliant with the AES67 standard. It's not just compatible, as some manufacturers are, they're just compatible. It's actually 100% compliant with the AES67 standard. So you might want to find out about that difference too. So I just want you to know what the folks at Axia have done. They really put a lot of time and effort into not only helping develop AES67, but also then rolling that standard into the whole LiveWire suite of audio over IP protocols, making your life as an engineer really, really convenient. Thanks to Axia and to LiveWire Plus for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And if you'd like more information, go to the Axia website. Good way to go there, just go to axiaaudio.com, go to telosalliance.com. And if you'll scroll down, look for LiveWire Plus in the Axia suite of products, and you'll find a whole kind of informational, not a white paper exactly, but a nice article about what is LiveWire Plus and how does it work, how it helps you converge your networks, and how it's really the gold standard for connecting equipment together. Again, thanks again to Axia for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, so a few weeks ago, I was talking to Chris Tobin. I said, Chris, who do you know that's interesting that we can have on the show? And Chris said, I got your guy. It's Jeff Schick. So, Jeff, hey, man, now's your chance. You got the floor. Tell us about this Sprite Media, and why would I be interested in it?
Sure. Well, digital signage is not new. I did not create it. I'm hopefully putting a little bit of a twist on it, but I'm sure people listening, people viewing this have seen this. Everybody's seen it, from airports to fast food to donut shops to your bank to your grocery store. It's everywhere. I consider what digital signage is now to what web pages were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, some radio stations had them, most didn't. And I think the same goes for today. One of my pet peeves from working many years in radio is when somebody builds an air studio or production studio, they put a lot of effort and a lot of money in, and then they put plastic banners all over. The cheap promotion banners, they just tape them. I remember one radio station I worked at, we had $65,000 windows, soundproof windows, and they just taped the plastic promotion banners right over it.
Yeah.
So one thing that digital signage does for you right off the bat, it gives you a nice, clean, modern look. Hopefully that it's done right where it's in high definition. And unfortunately, I've seen some that are in standard definition, and I've seen some that just have an error across the screen, which looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
So in Sprite Media, I tried to come up with useful screens that radio stations could use. Most of the signage companies out there, the digital signage companies out there, will rent you or sell you the equipment. They also like to rent you the software with monthly and yearly charges on that. And it's up to you to figure out how to use it, how to put it together, what your radio station needs. Since I know firsthand that a lot of radio stations have cut back and cut back and cut back and cut back, it's really difficult for a station to take on another task, especially one that has to be dealt with every month if you're going to keep it fresh. Another pet peeve I have is stale data. You go, you see one of these signs up, and it says something about their holiday party, and it's July.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I've seen that.
We'll get into some of the stuff my signage does, but right off the bat, you can schedule it like a commercial. When the day of the activity is over, that screen goes away. So you can put in certain time of the year, happy holiday messages, anything to do with health care from the company can be in when you need it to be on the screen, and we try to keep any stale data as far away as possible, plus the ugly banners there. So I'm going to go right into the 5 screens that are available right now, and I make it fairly easy to pick out what you'd like. Actually, I make it very easy. I even call the way I put together a sign for somebody color forms. Remember
Jeff,
yes.
Jeff, I wonder if I might interrupt for a second. You know what I was just thinking is that one reason that signage hasn't taken off in the past so much, and it just has occurred to me because I've been to several studios now where video displays are getting huge, freaking huge, because you can go down to Costco or Sam's Club or order on the web, really big color displays nowadays that look fantastic. And guess what? They'd look fantastic in your lobby or in your newsroom or in, hanging from ceiling mounts in your control room, where employees congregate. So the cost of displaying big, bright, beautiful, and informative and changing, even animated displays, the cost is coming down. So now let's get some great content to throw up on those on those displays. Is my thought a bit of a driver in this?
Oh, it's great. That's exactly how I'm thinking. I talked to a friend of mine who's a chief engineer, and he did signage a few years back, and they charged him $10,000 per screen for digital signage.
Oh.
I don't do that. And in fact, I tell you, go to Best Buy, go to Costco, buy the biggest, nicest TV you can, and I'll even help you with the brands I like and the models I like, and put it up. And we'll do the rest. We'll do the signage part, you get the TV, and you save a lot of money that way. If you see the TV behind me, the screen, that was $400 at Costco.
Wow.
But there is something to note between consumer screens and professional screens. Consumer screens are only meant to be on about 6 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
A professional screen is made to go on for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have warranties about 3 to 5 years, even on-site warranties. So if anyone wants to have a screen up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in a prominent location, I would probably recommend a professional screen, and I certainly can help you find that, and I'll even point you to Amazon or someplace where you can get that, or I can get it for you. But you have some really big savings by just getting a really nice display, and as long as the thing does 1080, you're in business. And I'll mention this further down the road. We also do 4K.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, this stuff is this whole signage business is changing daily. Keeping up as best I can, and it's kind of cool to keep up with it. I saw a demo of a camera that you post on your screen, and it gives you the metrics of the people walking by, their approximate age, if they're paying any attention to it, sex, race, everything, and it's pretty wild to see it.
And how does it know all that?
That's a good question. I don't know all the details on that, but it did say I was a senior, so I guess it was my hairline that was the giveaway on that.
Oh, gee.
Not that old, anyway. Yeah.
Hey, so Jeff, on the show we do talk about technology. I'd like, if you don't mind, I'd like to. Well, first of all, we mentioned earlier that different applications. I kept saying lobby. I'm wondering if some folks, my feeling was I didn't have an idea of how helpful, how motivational, how informative this kind of signage could be until I saw it in a radio station in Sydney, Australia. And so I saw they had about 3 good-sized screens. Theirs happened to be portrait positioned, vertically positioned. And it was kind of like going into a McDonald's with the video signage that they have. You'd see promos for the morning show on each of their stations, and then promos for the midday and the evening shows, and then something about maybe a popular overnight show or a network show that they ran. So they were kind of advertising in the lobby to corporate sponsors, people that might come in and want to know that, hey, this is the real deal. This is a big honking radio station. But then they had signage that served other purpose, run by the same system in other rooms, as we mentioned, the control room and the newsroom and the staffing, staff areas. So I know that's where you're going to go and talking about. I'm really curious to hear about how you get design and content onto those. But Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, could we spend a minute talking about the tech first, because we kind of know where the conversation is going. Tell me about how does the video get from wherever it starts, computer, a PC, a Raspberry Pi, I don't know. How does it get from somewhere, wherever you put the content in, out to the monitors themselves? What's an engineer going to have to run through the ceiling to make this work?
I recommend Ethernet connections. So my main box does Wi-Fi. Just you'll have less problems that way, but Wi-Fi is still an option. I deal with several different type of media players. The last thing I want somebody to do is go home with the wrong media player and find out it won't do what they want it to do. This is my standard product right here. This is a computer. It's a small computer.
Oh, okay.
It's got HDMI out. It's got DisplayPort out. It's got 4 USBs. The boot up time is 8 seconds.
Whoa! So that goes near each display, one of those?
You need one at each display.
Yeah.
If you go shopping out there, there's a lot of them out there, and it's taken me months and months to find the one that suited me best. And I've got one that's been running over a year without a glitch. So I know my box is good. I know my box is going to last for years. Now to get into how this all works, the box, my main product, I'm going to put up one of the screens here so you can see in the background. This is my DJ screen. I refer to the screens as sprites, kind of my little jargon there. So this is my DJ sprite, and you'll see, I'll have to point some of these stuff out because I'm sure it's not clear on some of this video, and also for the people listening and who can't see, I'll point out what's on the screen. But basically, there is an engine which is cloud-based. Everything is cloud-based with my standard product. I do the design. I have a bunch of backgrounds, and I basically can do anything you want, but I've got about 30 backgrounds you can choose from. I like the multi-zone look. That's my kind of thing, where you have sports in one section. You have, I call this the multi-screen. I have weather on this one, and I have Twitter for all those folks that want to go into social media. This is a fantastic way of getting there. I also have a news scroll on the bottom, and I can scroll almost anything on the bottom. But I put this together. It's in the cloud. It's in a redundant data center. It's running off the Google App Engine, and it's in the Amazon data center. So the stuff is definitely going to be very secure for you. The failure rate is extremely, extremely low, down to fractions.
So in your system,
when I put this together, it is grabbing information from various sources. Now, so the thing that's interesting is that if you're going to have a sign up and people are going to see it, you have to have licensed data. And there's another thing that's a problem for people doing it themselves, is you have to, like my multi-screen now has Reuters news service going through it, and that's licensed. So if you have a news service at your station, we could put that in there as well. If it's a service you're paying for. There's other services that are free, like Twitter is free here. But we can move to the world of, instead of the fifth caller wins a prize, how about the fifth tweet wins a prize?
Yeah.
So, social media is the thing these days. So also on this one, I'm taking something I've been hearing a lot lately, which is people name their studio after a sponsor. So you can, instead of making a signage saying it's somebody's broadcast studio, you can do that electronically, and that can be changed at any time very easily. So remotely, I can do almost anything, and I charge a monthly service, which takes care of everything, including if your media player dies, we'll send you another one completely configured to go in. And if you're between Boston and Washington, we'll install it for you. We'll install the media player. We don't do the TVs. We can probably find you someone to do the TVs, but we do the media servers to make sure everything is just right. The worst thing I want to see is someone to take our sparkly signs and have the settings wrong and it not look good. It's got to look good.
I can't speak for every engineer, but this is the kind of thing I want to install myself. I want to put the TVs up. Okay, maybe I want a little bit of help, but the media players, stuff like that. I'm curious to get my hands on this and try this stuff out. And by the way, I'm so delighted that your answer to my question earlier about how this stuff hooks up was Ethernet, because I don't want to run HDMI cables through the ceiling and can't run them that long anyway unless they're expensive. And I didn't want to run RF coax. I wanted to use the infrastructure that either I already have or that's easy to add. So do these media players, can they attach to the business network that I already have running through the radio station?
Yeah, they can. I haven't run into any problems yet with the data being clogged. That's always a possibility. What also happens is anything as far as video or anything that's large will be downloaded to the media player, so it's not constantly pulling from it. It's really not a data hog at all. I'm going to switch.
Chris Tobin had a question about the tech too. Chris, come on in.
Oh, okay. Well, Jeff was actually, looks like he was going in the direction. I was going to ask about the small board computer, the hub of your product and the way it works. So if I'm installing this small little box at my facility, I can treat it like any other PC-based network-attached device I would use.
How
right?
so?
Well, say if I want to use VLANs, or I have a separate subnet for just, say, broadcast revenue products, and this digital signage may fall into that. Okay, great. Also, is this also a platform, as Kirk pointed out, you don't want to do HDMI cables all over the place. That makes sense. So if it's networkable, in theory or in practice, you could put one of these little boxes somewhere else, say off-site at a mall or a remote location you do the morning show from, and control it just over a standard broadband connection.
You control the sign, yes.
Yep. Okay. All right.
So if you want to get as far as putting like a camera on your morning team and putting it in a sign that's somewhere, you can do that as well. It's the list is really long of what you can do.
Good. So basically, the product, the technology you're working with is a standard Ethernet-based TCP, product that you can work with, just like we would do with, say, a zip codec or anything else.
You plug it in and it works.
Okay.
The only difference, if you go Wi-Fi, you got to get on your Wi-Fi network and put in your password. That's the only difference.
Sure.
Right. But that's standard fare for any of that.
Exactly. So in the end, it should be pretty easy. I'm going to switch over to the screen that Kirk was talking about. And this is our lobby screen. So what I'm going to point out what's on this screen. Of course, we have a logo. We have a potential sponsor that you can put in. We have a presentation of all the shows that are on the air and any information about an upcoming concert, just like what we have here. But we have some extra neat, cool stuff. We've got the news feed going here. We've got some QR codes up here. So if you have a smartphone, you just swipe by there and you're either getting to your station's Facebook site, the website, or even you can run a contest from the screen.
Okay.
We also have the welcome guests, and the neat thing about the welcome guests, it runs off of a Google app, which means you can type in the welcome guests from your phone, from your iPad, from your computer without having anything to do with the programming of the sign, and it will go to the sign usually within 2 minutes.
Okay. So a salesperson say, "Oh, I just remembered that Joe Muckety Muck is showing up here, and he wants to buy some advertising. I really want to impress him. I better get his name up on the board."
Sorry, I lost you there.
Yeah, so you can get somebody's name on the board quickly. Oh yeah, so and so is going to be a guest today. Let's get his name on the board.
Yeah, none of fashion sticking the letter on the felt.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I'm really glad to say that you could arrange to run some signage off-site. I can imagine in a small, medium market, maybe even a large market, where you've got a mom-and-pop restaurant that's really popular, and you want to put signage up there. But I've been in some restaurants lately that had signage sold by third parties, sold by competitors to the radio station. And, just something to look at while you're munching on your hamburger. And the radio station could do that. They could provide the signage. They could have, helpful, meaningful information, not just ad after ad after ad that runs, but they could actually run, and they could, have video clips of their morning show or all kinds of stuff going on there. That would be a real help to us. I'm thinking small market stations, but it could be anybody. Great idea.
Yeah, well, Z108 can go out and put this in the restaurant, and there is studies that when you look at digital signage, you have a lower perceived waiting time. So your favorite restaurant there, where you're waiting there with the 20 other people for your seat, you can have a screen up, and people pay attention to it. I'm going to switch to our newsroom screen here. And the newsroom screen is more data intensive, and there's two different kind of newsrooms you can do. You can do a local newsroom, or you can do a national newsroom. Obviously, we can adapt to whatever you want. What I have done here on the Twitter feed is I put breaking news coming there. So you can be just like the big boys and see if someone's got a story that's breaking and decide whether or not you want to follow up on that, as opposed to trying to go on the internet and look and try to find things. We've got a sponsor up there, got sports, we got live traffic, we've got weather, we've got the stock quotes coming in, and we have a scroll. And the scroll can be a combination of different news sources or any kind of sources. If you're a big tennis fan, like I mentioned, the U.S. Open, you could have an RSS feed from the U.S. Open, or whatever floats your boat. If your radio station focus on certain needs or certain areas, especially I know I was talking to a radio station in Pennsylvania, and they're huge on storms.
Yeah. Weather station. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on to my next screen, which is this. This is the staff screen here. From working in radio stations, as we know, the weekenders have no idea what's going on. They come in, they do their shift, and they leave. So, yeah. So on this one, I put up a list of staff and their extensions. If you may have a need for that in the lobby if you don't have a receptionist. I put company information here about health club membership, transportation. My logo is going to come up here, and I have some news and weather, and I have a sponsor up there. I made this screen to go into the kitchen or the lunchroom.
Yeah.
So see, you got the staff picnic coming up here. So especially at the weekenders I remember asking somebody if they were going to go to a company party, and they had no idea what was going on unless you read all those papers that are thumbtacked or scotch taped to the wall. Yeah,
exactly. Along with the EEO notices and the lost dog and the positions.
Exactly.
Available. Yeah.
So it sounds like Chris is joining us.
Yeah, Chris, what's up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to make too much noise. I had a question along the signage of what you're doing there with the kitchen stuff. I talked to a friend of mine who's a program director, and I was just hacking about an idea. If I want to do, say, the whiteboard concept in the Air Studio, how easy can you implement it? And is it something that if the program director or music director or whomever is assigned can put up messages up on the whiteboard while they're off site, whether it be on the weekends, late night, and here's an example. So say you're a music station, and say a popular artist does something either good or goofy that's newsworthy or just makes the TMZ notes, if you will, and you want to get that to the announcer immediately from your smartphone while you're sitting in a restaurant or dinner with the family. Is it something you can sort of emulate a whiteboard that's just, it could be a static shot of something at the moment, and then it changes to say, hey, so-and-so, this is what's going on, check on this, let's see about getting this into the clock, and blah, 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 that type of thing. What do you say?
Excellent question, Chris. I've got a presentation going here. These signs are pre-recorded because I didn't want to have each data field fill up while we were waiting 5 minutes for that to do so.
Okay.
The screen behind me over here, that's one of our DJ sprites, and this is live right now. This is an example of what the screen would do, and we have just that up here. It's a whiteboard, and it's connected to a Google Sheet, and whomever, whenever, program director wants to type in some notes. I put up here summer concert ticket giveaway as programming notes. But let's say the program director is at a concert and Bruce Springsteen shaves his head on stage. That can be typed in on his phone, on his iPad, on his computer, wherever, and go to the screen here. And it should show up within 2 minutes. I hear Chris. I don't hear Kirk.
I was going to say I didn't hear Kirk either. That's why I said, uh-oh, sorry.
That's because
all right, so you could do the whiteboard effect. You could be at a Springsteen
Yes.
concert. Excellent. That's right on the spot.
I'm not saying Bruce is going to shave his head, but, you never know.
Anything's possible nowadays.
Anything is possible. I'm going to go over to this. Is my last screen of the demos I have. This one is, I call it the executive screen, and this one is the most flexible for whoever is going to be using it. I'm using Mr. John Demo as our program director, and this could be anything they want. I put his calendar, which would go from an app to the sign, and unfortunately the only thing this guy's got on his schedule is lunch, but it has whatever news he would want, multi-time zone clocks, has his business card as a QR code, which you could just swipe on your phone and you got his business card for those guests who stop by. But let's say they're interested in the charts for whatever music format they have, that can be there. It's whatever that person wants or needs. And it also could be a reflection of the whiteboard, too. You can put any object on one screen or multiple screens. Whatever you want. It's very flexible. And unfortunately, people have a hard time deciding when they have so many choices. Kind of like going to a diner.
Yeah. So I guess you have some templates. Here's what we suggest.
Yes.
But then when people get used to the kind of stuff that they can have presented to them, whether no matter which room it's in, which context I guess you're looking at, then ideas start to flow. Hey, we could put this on there. We could put that on there. Are there any, Jeff? Is there any possibility for? Let me ask. I think the answer is no, but so typically you have a maximum of about a 2-minute wait time between some new information that you want to put in through the app and the time that it shows up. So I guess that for alerting purposes, this is really not the right technology. If you have somebody at the door, fire alarm, or an EAS alert, this is not the right stuff for that.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
So what we're dealing with here, this is stuff that's in the cloud. You're sending stuff into the cloud. But I also have some media players that are interactive, which take local information, and that type of triggers would be immediate.
I see.
So yeah, I thought about it. The lone person at the radio station just has their Chinese food delivery at the door, and they ring the doorbell. You can have that pop up on the screen. You can have an EAS alert come on the screen, and that's actually a different media player than I have as my first one. I have 2 other media players. I have one that also can have live television in it. Mm-hmm. It's scalable. It's a little extra money, but it's not too bad. This stuff is all affordable now, and I've researched this stuff to death. You can do some pretty neat things, like you can encode video on one box and then decode it somewhere else in the building. So if you have like a weather channel, you can put that in on one of your screen, and you can pull it off on another sign in real time. And you can do the same with audio. I thought for a college radio station, you have these signs in the dorm rooms. The lobbies of the dorms or the student center, and you can send your audio from your college radio station through the signs.
Oh, wow. That's very, I want to explore that in just a minute. Hey, I want to remind all of our viewers and listeners you're watching This Week in Radio Tech. It's episode number 273. I'm Kirk Harnack along with Chris Tobin, and Jeff Schick is with us. He's a radio guy, but he's in this a little bit differently. He's describing a system of digital signage for your radio facility that is useful apparently not only in the radio facility, but also external to the radio facility. There's some cool ideas there. We're going to hear a few more cool ideas coming up. Our show is brought to you in part by the folks at the Telos Alliance. It's where I am right now. And the really popular product, my goodness, we ship so many of these every month. The Telos HX1 and HX2. These are some of the belt and suspenders kind of tools that you use in a broadcast facility. And more you find telephone hybrids in convention centers, at hotels, in conference rooms. You find a lot of use for these. Hey, podcasters, a lot of podcasters now are using, they go and they try some chintzy way to get a phone call into their audio console, and they find out that it doesn't work. So they go bite the bullet, and they get a Telos hybrid. Why? Because it works. With a Telos phone hybrid, you plug a phone line into it, or with the HX2, you plug 2 phone lines into it if you like, and you get audio out, caller audio coming out, and you get a way to send your audio to the caller. That's what a hybrid does. And it's important to have this technology for the caller, first of all, to sound as good as possible, no matter what kind of connection they're on. But also for the caller to be able to properly hear your audio, if you're prompting the caller, talking to them, letting the caller hear what's on the air or what's on your microphones. Here's what's really important that a hybrid does, though, just in case you don't know. When you send audio to a phone line, you really don't want that audio to come back through the phone line. You want it to go to the caller. And phone lines forever have had this, have had this problem. They've had low quality hybrids at the phone company and at both ends of the call. Now, we're slowly moving away from that kind of technology and getting more and more digital connections. But for the callers that still remain, and callers' handsets and callers, the phone instruments themselves that people still use, you still need a great way to send audio that doesn't come back at you. And that's also what a Telos hybrid does. That's what Steve Church invented some 30 plus years ago with the Telos 10 hybrid, the very first digital DSP-based telephone hybrid. So there's a few other tricks that the Telos hybrids have up their sleeves, and the HX1 and HX2 have all these tricks built in. For example, let's say you're doing a television show with a live audience, kind of Donahue style, right? So you've got a caller coming in. Hey, is the caller there? And you want to bring the caller in over speakers in the auditorium, and you've got a live microphone. So you've got speakers, live microphone. You got a chance for feedback with the telephone hybrid and the phone system and the caller. It can be a real mess. Well, the Telos hybrids, including the HX1 and HX2, have a fantastically clever way to really reduce to almost nothing that chance of feedback. The audio sent to the caller is actually, get this, pitch shifted down just a little bit. And so the chance for feedback buildup is greatly diminished. Plus, the hybrid also has variable ducking going on. So you can set it up so that when you talk, when your talent, when you're the guy running the show, when he talks to the caller is ducked by a little bit or by a lot. It's up to you. And the ducking is really intelligent. We really try not to miss anything the caller says. But if the host wants to say something and shut that caller down for a second, no problem. That can be done as well. And you can open that up and just have full two-way conversations without ducking too. So many options. And the Telos 1 and Telos 2 are really set up to work anywhere in the world. If you've got some goofy phone system in the country you're in, no problem. There's a dip switch setting for that. Just set it to Goofy, or set it to Albania, or set it to South Africa, or set it to Nigeria, or set it to Singapore. It's got presets for the phone standards all around the world. Check them out if you would on the Telos website. Go to telosalliance.com and go to the Telos heading and look for broadcast phone hybrids, and you'll find one of the first ones listed there, the HX1 and the HX2. Literally many thousands of these in operation all around the world, putting callers on the air at the best possible audio quality over phone lines. Thanks to Telos for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, Chris Tobin, you still there? I probably muted.
I'm here.
Yeah. Have you ever used a Telos hybrid in any of your engineering?
The Telos which one?
Hybrid? Oh, any of them.
Oh, yeah. Use them all the time.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you're part of the family.
Oh, yes. No, I've used the early 1x6s, all the latest ones, yeah.
Okay.
You can always tell a Telos hybrid because it has a certain sound to it. Very
you can hear the caller, and
the caller doesn't sound like this.
The caller, the spectral energy is very balanced, if you will, shaped sound is what I like to call it.
You have worked in plenty of news operations, and I was at a news operation in Detroit, and they had a Telos HX1 hybrid for every reporter, and there were a bunch of reporters. So they had all these workstations where reporters would interview people for radio news, and every one of them had their own HX1 phone hybrid. They'd punch up a line on their phone, bam, it would go right into the HX1, and they'd interview, the mayor, their guest, the newsmaker, the person involved in the accident, his or her attorney, whoever it was. They'd get that newsmaker audio into the newscast, and it really made for dramatic, exciting and more informative newscast when they get the actual words from the people involved on the air. And that's what that's the dirty work the telephone hybrids do. They get this audio from people and let you use it professionally, like at news stations. So thanks again to Telos for sponsoring this week in Radio Tech. And Chris, thank you for using our hybrids. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. Well, your description of the newsroom and the hybrids in each of the edit booths, that's pretty standard fare. And if you're not doing it that way, then you're probably missing out on a lot of good things.
Yeah. All right. Hey, our guest is Jeff Schick. He is head of Sprite Media, and he's educating us about how we can use digital signage in a radio facility to help, impress people, to inform people, and to inform employees and on-air talent. And then there's some ideas also about putting signs out in remote locations like restaurants or shopping malls, maybe where the station shows up from time to time. Maybe how'd you like to just walking through a shopping mall and see a beautiful sign that's got, your Twitter feed, your weather, and maybe even a live shot of the current show that's on the air, or at least of the morning show, clips like that. And Jeff, you were just beginning to tell us about the audio possibilities. So help us understand how you can pipe audio around for these signs as well.
You can put in almost any source, being video, still picture, text, and audio. My other media player actually has an optical audio out. The quality is pretty good. The audio is excellent. Gotta make sure I speak correctly here, but almost anything you can think of that can be played through the internet can be played through these signs.
Okay, so I could have the station's 24/7 live audio available with the right media player, and I guess that's the key architecture. And you've done the research to find out what monitors work well, what media players work well for which application you want to accomplish, cost versus functionality. And then it sounds like, though, look, that's all great information, very helpful. People don't have to stub their toe and figure that out for themselves. But it's your ingest engine technology that provides the data feed to go to these and provides the graphics, I suppose, and the data feeds. The ingest, that's a huge part of this, and that's really the secret sauce that you're offering to folks.
Yeah, that's the main part of our standard product, though we can do almost anything. I just put together a video presentation for somebody doing a wedding expo, and this box is a standalone. So all they have to do is bring a TV, plug in an HDMI cable to the player, plug the player in, and it plays their presentation, 1080p, 60 hertz. And it looks great, but no internet for that one.
Okay.
That took me a while to find the one without the internet, because I was thinking I've worked at the car show in New York quite a few years, and you can have a sign in the auto show without dealing with the convention center's internet or getting clogged trying to do Wi-Fi or trying to get out on a cell phone, something like that. You can have a standalone unit, and that's going to be our next product, is the remote screen, and I'm looking at playing games on it, getting the prize wheel in there, maybe a trivia game pertinent to the radio station. So that's actually not too far away for me. I do have a couple of items here that we can do. It's not our standard stuff, but it's stuff we can do, including, as I mentioned earlier, 4K video art walls. What's a video art wall?
Yeah, what is a video art wall?
If you've probably seen it where you have multiple TVs, you might see in a really high-end facility where you have like 10 TVs and the video is across all the TVs.
Yeah, okay, so each, like a mosaic, right?
A mosaic, and you can have different types of TVs at different sizes of TVs at different angles. You can do, as you mentioned before, we can do vertical, we can do horizontal, we can do slanting, and the media player I have to do that does that right now. I can do that right now. You need to get TVs with thin bezels. The bezels are the side pieces here. This TV wouldn't work well for that, but there's a couple of manufacturers that manufacture TVs that are so thin on the side, you almost can't see the bezel between it. But it's a really nice look, and there's some really major ones out there, but that's something we can do. I mentioned live television in the sign. We can do that on our other player. We can also do touch screens. You've probably seen these in hotels where you want to find out what restaurants are nearby, you just touch the screen and you'll see what your choices are. I mentioned standalone remote screen. Here's one, hub and spoke from home office. As you guys all know, that most radio stations these years, at this time, are in clusters. You might have 5 radio stations. You might want 5 DJ screens, and you may want to have common information for all of them, plus the information pertinent to each one. We can do that. You might have a company that has 5 remote stations in different cities and a home office. You can have the home office sending information to all 5 of them in different cities, states, or countries.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to talk about something that most of the guys in my field don't talk about, and that's pricing. So, I can say that this stuff is affordable, and part of my goal was to make it in the price range of cable TV or cell phone service. You can take a look online and see how much media players run. They run anywhere from $80 to $5,000 a piece. I would not recommend an $80 one. It's not going to last very long. So our initial setup, which is we put together a media player, we put together the design, we consult with you, we get the okay, we can remotely send you what the presentation looks like before we even finish it, gets okayed, and we install the media player and set it up, and that is $999 for a screen. And then the monthly service on that, which includes the licensing and the data licensing, and also, and this is important, 2 content changes per month, which means if you want me to be your guy or Sprite Media to be your people that does your updates for your picnics coming up or your concerts, we'll do that for you, and that's included. So that's $199 per month, $199 per month. Includes the service and includes content changes. And also, if your box doesn't work for any reason, we will replace it with one ready to go. And I got a special for this week in radio technology listeners and viewers is if you say this week in radio tech, I'll give you 2 months free. For a year's service. And also, if you're going to do a hub and spoke or you just want to have 5 screens of any type, the 5th one is free.
Okay.
Including the setup and the monthly service. As long as you have the 4 others in service, the 5th one's free.
Now, you mentioned an app. Sure, I'm sure some people want to have you be their guy and change the content. What if you want to change your own content? What kind of tools do you have to let me do that myself?
Sure. We can either put up, like Chris was mentioning, that we can do a whiteboard. Also, we can take a web page that you have control of where you can change what's on that page. You can have a hidden page if you're controlling your own website, and you can make changes, or we could even put your website up there if you want. Or you can just email me or Dropbox me some content pictures or even a flyer, and I can put it together on the screen for you. So there's choices. I just know there's not a lot of radio stations out there that have people who have the time to work on this stuff.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a radio engineer and they dropped the first computer I ever saw at a radio station. Am I dating myself here? And I'm like, how is this my responsibility? And they said, well, it plugs into a wall, so it's your responsibility.
Okay. Wow. I was always the kid wanting to take the new computer home and play with it.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of that. I remember putting together an automation at a station the first time I dealt with a computer automation, and I remember going to the New Jersey Broadcasters Convention and spending 2 days sitting in a folding chair, quizzing the poor guy from Broadcast Electronics on how his box worked. But I was the one who took it out, and I remember having to do some programming on it, which I didn't expect, and finding a guy over at WWDC in Washington who was in the same bucket, and we ended up sitting at a table and doing some of the programming ourselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. Hey, Chris Tobin, if you're handy, I want to ask you, Chris, what are some of your visions of putting signage to use in radio stations?
I would think first, I would definitely want to have some way of communicating with the DJs, the announcers on air for not last minute, but for just keeping them current and posting information, just saying do this, do that, check on this. the other thing on the revenue side, I would love to see more radio stations doing content outside of their building and in, say, a restaurant or a mall or a public area, community events areas where people are interacting, or where you can garner an audience and interact with them even more, and something people are familiar with these days, which is video. If you can work with a smartphone and a video screen, hey, you've got yourself access to a captive audience. And as Jeff pointed out, when you're watching a screen, your time flies quicker or moves faster, so you don't even realize you've been standing in the restaurant lobby or maybe the park, community center for, say, 20 minutes or so, waiting for an event to take place. But at least the captive audience is looking at your material. And as you pointed out, Kurt, you know of third-party companies at restaurants that radio stations are losing business to. I mean, that's a flag. That should get someone's attention. Oh, wait a minute, that's not the way it should work.
I guess this is why they put video screens with news and stock market information and weather in fancy elevators in New York City. Now, we don't see that too often out here in the hinterland, but I tell you, in New York, so many elevators have a video screen going in there.
Yeah, that's a one company network that does that. They I think it's called Captivate, actually, and they do very well. Yes, so that's exactly it. So radio stations and TV stations could do the same thing, but again, it requires thinking outside of the proverbial box.
Yeah.
It's all about the purple cow, long tail. Remember those words. It's important stuff.
What? Purple cow? Long tail?
Yes, Seth Godin.
Ah, yes.
You see, if you don't know the purple cow, you haven't been keeping up.
Yeah. No, actually, the neighborhood I live in, we have a convenience mart down the street called the Purple Cow.
Nice. Excellent.
I don't think it's related in any way to Seth Godin. I think it was just their marketing.
No, I'm sure it's not. But
yeah. Hey, we got one more break to make here, and when we come back, I want for Jeff to give us a last hint or two about digital signage and what you can do with it, why it's important to broadcasters, and maybe Chris will have a tip of the week for us or something like that. Maybe Chris's tip will be put in some digital signage. Our show is brought to you in part by the folks at Lavo, L-A-W-O, Lavo. It's a German company that makes audio consoles, and they make some big, beautiful consoles for for TV trucks and big venues like concert halls and TV stations, things like that. But they also make a line of consoles for radio stations. Let's have a look right now if we could roll the video, if that's possible. This is the video we're going to roll here is Mike Dosh. He is the director of virtual radio projects at Lavo, and I'm not letting you hear the sound right now because I want you to go to the website and watch this video for yourself. He's describing the Lavo Crystal Clear audio console. This is a console where the engine for it and all the audio inputs and outputs, they go in a beautiful little one rack unit box that goes into a rack somewhere. You run your audio inputs and outputs to that, including inputs and outputs that come in and out via Ravenna or AES-67, audio over IP. And then you hook that box to your computer network, and then somewhere else on your network you connect up their computer, which is running a touchscreen, a really nice touchscreen. It's a 10-touch, multi-touch touchscreen, and on that screen is an app, and that app is an audio console. It's really gorgeous. There's Mike Dosh giving a demonstration of how that works. This was about a year and a half ago at the NAB show in Las Vegas. You can get your own demo of this by contacting Lavo. You can see about how it works for you. I would suggest watching this video that Mike is doing right here. You can see how when you run a console totally in software, that you have you can do things you couldn't do in hardware. One thing is you can make it simpler. You can make it simpler for the operators. So they can touch a button and the options that pop up are totally contextual. They have to do exactly with what you want to do. Hey, I want to change the way this mix minus works, or I want to just increase or decrease the gain on this microphone, or I want to reset the timer, or whatever it may be. The things that you can do by pressing buttons on the screen are totally contextual. This console does automatic mix minus for every source coming in. So you've got hybrids or codecs, or maybe you've got some talent with headphones on. Well, you can send them a back feed, whether it's a mix minus or just a mix of everything, like for talent headphones. The mix engine comes. It's very. It's got redundant power supplies, so it's very robust. That's the word I was looking for. It's real standard. It's technology, DSP tech. I don't know. It's just it's an amazing idea, and the touchscreen just really puts it over the top. Check it out if you would at lavo.com, LAWO, and look for radio products and look for radio consoles, and you can click on that and watch that video right there with sound and everything, sound and light and fury and good information. Thanks to Lavo for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, drawing to a close our episode with Jeff Schick about signage, something you may not have thought about in a radio station. It's affordable and doable. And Jeff, you got a closing word for us that might get us really thinking about digital signage.
Well, I wanted a few words here. I realize that I'm in standard definition. That's my camera, but I'm going to encourage people to go to my website, www.sprite-media.com, where you can probably see some clearer views of some of these signs. Also, you can email me at info@sprite-media.com, and our phone number is 646-893-8040. I got a quick story. As a last note here is one of the radio stations called me and they said, why are you different than me just doing a PowerPoint?
Yeah, good question. Good question.
I said, yeah, excellent question. I said, okay, well, where's the computer coming from? Is it one of your old computers or do you have to buy a new one? And what's the cost of that? Does that computer do 1080p or are you running some lesser version of graphics? Have you seen the motion on some of the PowerPoints? It's it's pretty choppy. Also, you cannot ingest live information like you've seen on the screen with news or any content. One of the things I didn't mention before is we can ingest YouTube and Vimeo videos into the screen. So if you have if your radio station does a concert and you uploaded some video there, we can put it on and we can even time it that it could be on your display for a month and then goes away, or however you want to do it. We can do stuff like that. So I encourage everyone to look into digital signage, and also if you've got a dealer near you, see if they know what they're doing. See if they're using high-end products. Like we do our video editing in Final Cut, and we do use Photoshop. So we want it to look good. My last job, I was director of television engineering, and my job was to make the video look good. And I continue that on with these screens.
Cool. Great idea. And on the one hand, Jeff, I get it. You're comparing your services with others, but I think for so many, well, for me certainly, and I like to think that I represent part of a group. So many radio engineers and radio station owners haven't thought about digital signage in their place. So they say this could be useful for us. This could make our lobby pop with excitement, it make us look more professional. And you walk into a control room, you bring a prospective advertiser into a control room, a newsroom, and they see information signage going on there too. And wow, we don't have this, in our business. I didn't know this kind of thing existed. So it's new for broadcasters. And if it's not new, they can compare. If it is new, hey, you can compare too, and see what a signage system designed by a broadcaster would actually look like. So very cool. And Chris Tobin, you got any final word for us before we have to leave?
Real quick, something really simple. It's analog in nature, but it works. I'm holding up a pen and a small notepad that can fit in your shirt pocket. The reason I point this out is I had recently, in this last week, working with a nonprofit, doing an installation for their audio distribution using a Barracks box and internet connectivity through a broadband service. And it just so happened the location we were working in, I had worked in 6 and 8 months earlier for another client, and we had found the old cabling they left in place. So if you could picture one rack about 3 or 4 feet from the other, the old cable sitting at the old rack, I'm going, gee, why not just swing it across the cable tray and down, and we've got ourselves connectivity rather than running cables, as you can see behind me, through all these wacky things.
Yeah.
It's already there, terminated, tested. So it turns out I pulled out my little nifty notepad from that project, opened up the page, and found the information as to the cable number, the port location, or the port number, the switch in the rack for the ISP that provided it, and also the circuits that it was set to. So I had all the ID numbers and everything. And within 15 minutes, we had an activated circuit and up and running. I was like, wow. So my buddy I was talking to, he's like, those days seem to have gone by where people keep notes of things they work on and just assume they can remember it. So for those of you that think you have the best memory in the world, you should really consider the pencil and paper. It's still very handy.
It is. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I've got a little notebook I carry around with me. Unfortunately, I rarely think to use it when I should, but I do carry one. Good advice.
No, it comes in handy. I'm telling you, the projects you work on nowadays with IP stuff, there's a lot of information you need to keep track of.
Yeah. Hey, and I've got a little tip as well, and for a lot of folks, it's been a replacement for what Chris just showed us. Although they're taking notes when you need to, but I'm finding that I know that the cell phone manufacturers and the cell phone carriers are providing cloud storage. So I've got an Android phone and the photo storage from Google, and I'm just amazed. I no longer have to worry so much about how much capacity is on the SIM card. I mean the memory card in the phone. I can take a picture, and within moments, it is uploaded to my cloud storage. And by goodness, I've got literally 50,000 pictures in Google Photos now. Today here at Telos, I needed to show our support guys a little problem that I had with a Telos product. And so I kind of thought I remembered the date, and so I was scrolling through the Photos app, found it, and found where I had taken close-up pictures of what the problem was. And I was able to, literally within 20 seconds, I had it up on the screen. I said, see, this is what happened. And so when this comes back to you guys, that's what has to get fixed. Amazing. And if I took a picture before, even with a cell phone a few years ago, or a camera, I would have had to search and search and search. And today's automatic upload of photos are just making this so convenient to keep track of stuff in your life. So whether it's pencil and paper or whether it's taking a picture of it, and of course there's things you can't really represent in a picture, like what Chris was showing us just there, both endpoints and circuit numbers and things like that. Good to write it down. Hey, thanks guys for being with us. Our show's been brought to you by the folks at Axia with Livewire Plus, also Telos and the HX1 and HX2 telephone hybrids, and Lavo and the crystal clear audio console. Thanks to them for sponsoring the show, and we'd appreciate it if you'd patronize each and any of them. Jeff Schick, thank you for being with us from Sprite Media. And again, the best place to find you is sprite-media.com. That's your website?
Correct. Thanks so much for having me on, Kirk and Chris. I really appreciate the time.
And thanks for introducing to this idea of digital signage for broadcast. Chris Tobin, man, you go to exciting places. Thanks for being with us.
Why not? It's all about the technology. I thought, what the heck. So yeah, I'm just going crazy here. Duplexer, diplexer combiner behind me. This is the combiner system. The duplexer is the far distance. So we'll have to pick a time and talk about that stuff for fun, for those of the RF nuts out there. I know there's plenty of them.
We've got some very interesting guests coming up on This Week in Radio Tech. I'm going to drop a couple names here. We're just about to go, and we'll get out of here in a second. But and of course, was I properly prepared? No, I wasn't. Hang on just a second. Let me bring up this calendar that got closed earlier. But I've been working to get some guests on. Coming up next week, we have a show about engineering and entrepreneurship. In other words, how to leverage what you do as an engineer into other things. Daniel Hyatt is going to be our guest next week. This guy knows how to leverage his engineering career into other things that make money. Pretty interesting. A couple weeks from now, Gary Liebisch is going to be our friend. You may know him from Broadcast Electronics. I believe he's with Nautel now, and he's going to have an update on RF stuff for us, so that'll be fun. In 3 weeks, our show will be live from Atlanta, Georgia, from the WSB AM transmitter site. If we can keep the RF out of the microphone, it's going to be quite an interesting show. We're going to have a bunch of engineers there at a party and tour of the WSB AM transmitter site. It's an iconic place. And then 4 weeks from now, another iconic name, Lawrence Baer, the RF consultant of Lawrence Baer and Associates. He's going to be our guest. Can't wait to have Lawrence Baer on. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming up in the next month. Glad that you're here. Tell your friends about This Week in Radio Tech, and be sure to subscribe to any of our shows, or to our show, either by audio or video. It's easy to do with the buttons that are available to you on thisweekinradiotech.com or on the GFQnetwork.com. All right, guys, we got to go. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.